Good morning. It is Monday, the 30th of March, and I'm speaking to you from my study. So that means that the telephone might ring, but I've got my husband Dave on standby with the extension phone to answer it if it does. Last week, we were thinking about household objects and how that could give us some insights into our relationship with God, with others, and with ourselves. Now, in future weeks, I may use another household object to bring us to think deeply about our relationships, but this week I'm going to do something different. This week, I'd like to take one of the set passages for the day and bring out just one or two points from that passage. We're not talking about a full-blown sermon, just one or two things to think about. Now, to get today's gospel passage from the Holy Communion service is from John chapter 8, verses 1 to 11. It's the passage about the woman caught in adultery. Now, I want us to think today about equality and Jesus' attitude towards women and how that was very different to the attitudes of the people of his day and in his culture. Now, the outline of this passage is that Jesus was teaching in the temple when some men who were out to trap him and bring a case against him brought a woman to him and made her stand in front of him. They told him that this woman had been caught in the very act of adultery, and they stated that the law of Moses said that she should be stoned. And then they asked Jesus what he would say on the matter. Now, first think about this. Jesus was teaching in the temple. Now, the design of the temple was such that it was all in different courts, one court within another, within another, within another. And the outer court was the court of the Gentiles, and they could go no further. Next court was the court of the women, that's the Jewish women, and they could go no further than that. The next court inside was the court of the Israelites, meaning the men. And the men could go up to and in that court, but no further. Now, the temple did go on further and further, but for the purposes of what I want to say today, we'll leave it there. So the men are in one place, but they could be in any of those three outer courts. The women could be in any of the two outer courts. Now, Jesus must have been teaching in the court of the women. Otherwise, they could not have brought a woman and made her stand before him. Now, women of that day were not particularly considered worthy of being taught. The serious teaching would go on in the court of the men, where the rabbis could debate with the learned men of the city. But Jesus is teaching in the court of the women, which says to me that he wanted both men and women to receive his teaching, to hear his message. So we have the first sign there of Jesus showing equality between men and women. Now, think about the men who brought this woman to Jesus. They said she should be stoned, but actually Deuteronomy chapter 22 verse 22 says, if a man lies with the woman, the wife of another man, both of them should die. Both of them. Now, if this woman was caught in the act of adultery, what I want to know is, where's the man? Why have they not brought him to be judged? Women of that day and in that culture were often treated as scapegoats. Their sins were considered worse than the sins of a man. And you wonder, was this woman actually caught in the act of adultery? Because if she was, surely the presence of the man involved would have confirmed this. Or maybe she was set up. Maybe there was an act of adultery, but the man was told that he would be allowed to go free if he would go and indulge in this act with this woman, so that these people might trap Jesus. Well, whatever the case, Jesus would have known. And it seems to me that Jesus did not judge this woman. Well, we know he didn't. He didn't accuse her. But he would have known the reality of the situation. He would have known whether it was true or whether it wasn't. He would have known whether it was set up or whether it wasn't. But he knew these men were out to trap him. But the point that I want to make today is that he exercised equality, both in the fact that he was teaching both men and women, and in the fact that he refused to judge a woman when a woman and a man had been caught in the same sin, but the man had not been made present, not been made to face the consequences of his actions. Jesus would not treat this woman as a scapegoat, and he would not allow others to do so either. So the challenge that I want to set you today is to think about whether or not there are any groups of people who you might be willing to judge more so than others. Are there any groups of people who you would be ready to blame for anything that's gone wrong in the world, rather than blaming anyone else? Take time today to talk to God and to ask him to show you any prejudices that there might be in your life, and ask him to help you to deal with them, so that you might treat all of his children with equality. Amen.